Hey there, Shauna from Skip Blast here. Just wanted to go ahead and give you my January update, my income report for how my Ezoic sites did for the month of January. We already know that is literally the worst month of the year for ad rates, so that was to be expected for this month. But before we get started, I do want to remind you that these are only the sites that I have on Ezoic. Currently that is just 5 sites, and I have a much larger portfolio of sites. So the income that you're going to see me mention in this update is only applicable for these 5 sites. Okay, first up we have site number 1 in the food and drink niche. The EPMV actually did not drop by as much as I expected for January, so it came in at $3.42. Total income for the month for that from Ezoic was $12.95. All in though, this site made $104.72 in January, primarily from Amazon affiliate links. Now, I did actually make a switch to a new domain for this site late in January. It's something I kind of been planning on doing to kind of like basically make the domain more niche relevant, because I went for like a branded domain before that, and I think it was kind of causing some confusion with Google as to what the site was actually about, because it turns out that a company in Australia actually launched a very similar site that was completely different niche. So I was kind of noticing from month to month that Google would, give me rankings and take them away, and I think that was why. So that's why I changed that domain name. Other than that, the only thing I did on this site for January was use Ezoic's big data analytics to go through all of my content that's bringing in money, from Ezoic, to see, what content do I have that brings in the most money, so that I can kind of form my content strategy for 2023, based on that. I actually did a case study a few years ago on doing exactly this with big data analytics. So if you haven't read that, I'll leave you a link below. That will kind of walk you through the process on how you can do this for your Ezoic sites. And honestly, if you are not on Ezoic, if you're on AdThrive or Mediavine, you can do the exact same thing, since they do give you that page level data based on RPM, which is also, pretty similar to EPMV here on Ezoic. The only other change that I made for this site was, once I did make that switch to the new domain, I did switch out from the AAWP plugin for my Amazon links to Lasso. This was actually part of a test that I ran in January, kind of pitting up Lasso against the affiliate table, which I think is how you say that plugin. I'll have another video coming out on my findings for that. But yeah, otherwise that's really all I did for this site. I did wait a really long time actually for the Google Ad Manager approval once I made that domain change. This was actually a big fuck up that I did for this site. As you can see just from the screenshot here, I lost out on a lot of money doing it the way that I did that, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, site number 2, religion and spirituality niche. Again, not a huge drop in the EPMV like I was expecting. Came in at January for $3.22. Total Ezoic income, $9.37. There's like one affiliate link on this entire site. Happened to make sale, so total income for January, $10.62. Like with the other site, the only thing I really did for this site for the month was, comb through all of that data that I had available in Big Data Analytics to kind of form my content strategy going forward for the rest of the year. I also checked in on the AI-assisted content experiment that I started doing at the end of 2022. That does seem to still be going really well for this site. And actually some of these posts are now in the top 10 for the posts on this entire site. So that's a pretty interesting discovery for me. So I'll probably continue doing that as well. Okay, site number 3, also in the food and drink niche, but not the same sub niche as the first site. This one actually, I don't know how, but it saw an increase in the EPMV for January. So that came in at $6.56. I can only assume that for that to have increased, something was going on with the site in December, or maybe like a new site became like my most trafficked post. Honestly, this site is making us a little income I didn't even check. However, what I did do was go into Big Data Analytics, just like with the other sites, to kind of form my strategy for the rest of the year. This is something that I do every January for all of my sites. basically so that I have a plan of going forward, what I'm going to be working on for the entire year. But yeah, this site, it made $18.55 in January with just Ezoic. There are a few posts on here with affiliate links, not too many so far. So we came in just under $40 for the month at $39.82. Okay, site number 4 in the tech gaming niche. If you've read the blog post already on Skip Blast, or if you remember from the previous month, this site started out as like super focused on gaming, and I've kind of been doing more and more tech focused posts to try to get that EPMV up so I can make a little more money and then kind of, eventually sell this site. January EPMV, $2.28. So you can see how terrible this EPMV is and why I'm so desperate to boost it. That was down from $2.76 in December. Ezoic income for the site for January was $37.16. There are several posts with affiliate links on this particular site, so all in it brought in $60.86 for January. And again, just like the other sites, pretty much the only thing I did for this site for the entire month was work on coming up with a content strategy for the rest of the year based on what information I have in Ezoic's big data analytics. I did actually, and I forgot to put it on the slide here, I did update a few old posts, but I don't think that really was anything that actually affected the income for the month because it was something I did later on in the month. So just something to note for yourself. Site number 5, outdoors niche. EPMV for this one, $6.33. Honestly, I expected it to maybe exceed December just because I had those few days in December where my site was down, so I thought having a full month's worth of data might see me make a little more, but I guess that wasn't in the cards for the month. Total income from just Ezoic for January, $7.54. With the affiliate links I have, which there's a lot, this site has like 200 posts and there's a good amount of affiliate content on it. $30.32 was what it made all in. I spent actually quite a lot of time in big data analytics for this site because, this site is pretty new. It has 200 posts, maybe a little more, and they cover, some very broad topics here. So what I really wanted to see in big data analytics is, which topic clusters to build out for this site based on what's earning me the most. And if you've already read the blog post on Skip Blast, you probably already know this. One of the discoveries that I made was that hunting knives was my worst paying post, I guess we could say topic cluster for this site based on EPMV. So that was something that was pretty surprising for me to find out in this. Okay, so that's all of the sites that I have on Ezoic right now for January. Total income these sites brought in was $85.57, and that was just the Ezoic income. I didn't add up the total income because, I'm focused on what you can earn from Ezoic with your sites. And like I mentioned with one of the sites earlier, I was actually pretty surprised that my EPMV didn't drop more in January than it did in, based on December. So I'm not really sure why that happened because I have sites on Mediavine as well, and the drop was pretty drastic for those. So who knows what's going on with that with these sites. Every site that I have on Ezoic, like I mentioned, I use big data analytics to find the content that has the highest EPMV for me. One thing that was pretty interesting, as I went through each site, is they seem to have, mostly the same type of content bringing in the highest EPMV. And that was like product versus product type of content. So I don't know, that could be something like a specific model of Nike running shoe versus a specific model of Adidas running shoe. That's the type of content that I'm talking about. So it wasn't buying guides, although those were some of the top earners as well. But, hands down, product versus product. And it didn't matter if it was, a very expensive product or not, it still seemed to bring in the most money. So that's actually the type of content that I'm going to be focusing on for most of these sites going forward. It's going to be a bit of a transition from informational focused content to affiliate focus, and it's going to be these product versus product style things. I'm hoping to see quite an increase in site revenue when I do this because, I'll have the higher EPMV, which means more ad money, but I should also make some affiliate sales, so that should also increase. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with these sites when I start doing this. And the other big thing for this month was that domain name change that I made for site number 1. So I feel like I've been waiting a fucking eternity for Google Ad Manager to approve this site, right? You could see, from the screenshot that I had back on that first slide that it was basically like 11 days at the end of the month where there was like zero ad income coming in. And today is February the 10th. And I think it was only like 2 days ago that I finally got the Google Ad Manager approval. It's only supposed to take a maximum of 2 weeks. What I didn't know, though, was that you have to actually already have the domain approved for Google AdSense. I don't know why this information is not like within your Ezoic account to tell you this. So, I fucked around, lost 2 weeks. I'm on day 12 of still waiting for this approval. Someone on Twitter thankfully told me this whole thing about needing to have it approved for AdSense. So I did that. 2 days later, finally got approved. So if you are trying to get, your site approved for Ezoic or something like that, make sure that you get this site approved by AdSense first. And when I said that I totally fucked this up, it wasn't just that. I think going forward, if I do another domain name change for a site that's on Ezoic, and I've discussed, in my previous update of possibly changing the domain name for that religion and spirituality site, which I think is site number 2. I think what I will do going forward is I will, go ahead and launch that new domain, copy over all of the content, get that site approved for AdSense and, for Ezoic, which, yes, it's going to be duplicate content, but in my testing in the past, it doesn't matter. They'll still approve it, right? So I will do that, and then once that new domain gets approved, then I will do that proper 301 from the old domain. That's what I should have done for this site number 1. I don't know why I didn't. Obviously, it's going to cost me some money, but going forward, that's what I would do, and that's what I recommend you do as well. Okay, that's all I got for these sites. Obviously, didn't earn a ton of money. These are all smaller sites that they're either new or I've been neglecting them for years, and I'm trying now to build these sites up so that I can flip them hopefully later this year. If I was trying to do this as my only sites, I would obviously need a day job. So this type of work that I'm doing with these particular sites, it's more applicable to someone who is doing this as kind of like a side hustle, right? But I'm hoping that as we go through month by month, you'll be able to see how this can scale up, even with just like smaller sites, right? So I hope you stick with me and come back next month for the next update.